What up, YouTubers? It's your boy, the Visionary. Welcome to another episode of Fireside Chats. Yeah, there's a lot of crazy shit that's popping off recently. We are 2 weeks after the 2012 presidential election. Obama has won the presidency once again, and he is in his second term. Disclaimer: I did not vote for him. I felt my personal opinion about his first administration was that, number one, I feel he did not fulfill many of the campaign promises that he ran on as part of a platform for the presidential election, for the 2008 presidential election. Number two, more importantly, is that since his administration, he has passed into law a lot of legislation that, in my opinion, is unconstitutional. Pretty much, the NDAA, the FSMA, Food Safety Monetization Act. There's like 6, 7, 8 different major laws that change the general landscape of American life, and I think people need to look that up. Whenever you get the chance, go to the USSenate.org site, and they'll give you a list of all the laws that he signed into office since his administration. Moving on, he faces a lot of shit in his second term. There's 3 major issues that I want to talk about that he has to deal with. The first one is, I have it here that I typed it. Where is it? I'm trying to see which one is the least important to talk about. All right, immigration reform. Immigration reform is bullshit. Why? Because most people don't understand that when you have a state and that state has borders, there's certain types of borders. There's physical borders, meaning the actual geographical limitations of where a person is allowed to go to and from. And then there's the economic borders, in terms of how money can pass through and what can be sold and what can be bought between two countries and so on and so forth. The national GDP and stuff like that. And most people don't know that there was an agreement signed in early 1990s called the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. You probably heard 1 or 2 people in Congress or Senate in the geopolitical sphere talk about it, but it's usually quieted and shut the hell up. And what it talks about is a economic agreement between the United States, Mexico, Canada, and I think 1 or 2 other mini states that's not part of the U.S., where all economic limitations that regulate GDP gross domestic product and import and exports are dissolved. So basically, there's no limitation on how much each country or each state or each country can buy from each other. There are no limitations. There are no laws regarding what can be bought and what can be sold. So basically, the United States absorbs into itself economically Mexico and Canada. So therefore, the economic borders in themselves are effectively dissolved. Now, what does this do? Now, basically, what this does is, economically, in certain instances, it can weaken certain industries within the United States. So let's say there's a product in Mexico, right? And this is basic economics. Let's say there's a product in Mexico. Let's say it's a soda. And this soda is fucking awesome, but the soda is massively cheap. Let's say in Mexico the soda is 50 cents, but in the US we have a soda that's almost as good but not as good, but that soda is 75 cents. So what happens is, when you buy and trade between 2 countries, and let's say Mexico likes our soda, even though our soda isn't as good as theirs, they like that soda. They'll buy from us and then they'll sell to us. And what happens is, we eventually will start buying more of their product than they will from us. So what happens is that makes our economy weaker because we're spending more than what we're spending on more than what we're selling, pretty much. So economic trade laws are there to prevent countries from collapsing, because there are certain instances where a country has all their products is so good and they start selling shit, and it's wow, you're making a lot of fucking money, but what are you spending your money on? What are you buying? What are you investing and putting your money into? And that eventually can collapse a country. So what happens is, with Mexico and Canada, our economic borders are resolved, and there's no regulation, no laws that prevent any sort of amount of buying and selling or import or exports from going on. So what this does is certain interest in certain parts of the country go, okay, well, I'm a company, I can set up shop in this country, aka the United States, coming from Mexico, and go, you know what, I can pass a law, I can lobby in Congress and Senate with certain people who are trying to pass immigration law and tell them, no, don't pass that. Why? Because a person who's coming from Mexico, I can pay that motherfucker $5, $6 instead of paying him $12, $13 for the same fucking work. So why would I want to, why would I want to make them pass laws, make it harder for me to get cheaper labor? Period. I might as well just stay in Mexico. Maybe the laws in the United States might be better, but in Mexico the work is cheaper and shit might be different. So it's a business thing. It's a business thing. So that's one of the reasons why I think the immigration reform is just bullshit in and of itself. Until they dissolve NAFTA in and of itself, they're not going to get any real traction in trying to get anything done. Second issue, the financial cliff, aka the Bush era tax cuts, and that's honestly what I think it really is. Because what happens is we have pretty much $100 billion a deficit to make up for. So what they're going to do is they're going to start making cuts all over off the board, and most importantly, they're going to end the Bush era tax cuts. And Obama, after doing that, he was going to actually raise taxes for a certain percentage of American citizens who fit a certain tax bracket. I agree with it. They need to pay more. We need the money, and we're heading for some very serious economic times. Will this affect the economy? No. Rich people, y'all need to understand that the money that they take from you is going to be spent on other shit. They're actually going to spend it instead of save it like most people do. Because rich people don't actually really, from the revenue and profits, they don't really invest more in their shit. Like, they'll invest in specific parts and certain things that help make it better, but they won't go, I'm going to put all of my earnings into this business to make more jobs. And no, they don't do that. They actually hold on to their money. They actually hold on to their money, and they invest in the shit that makes them money individually. They won't invest in the stuff that spreads the wealth around. So I agree with his proposal on raising the taxes for certain percentage of American citizens. Yada yada yada. I just hope he gets it through. But the certain liberals and moderates and more or less Republicans, conservatives are gonna try to fight that shit being passed in Congress. The last issue, which I think is more important, is alright, there was an article, there were a number of articles, but it wasn't mainstream. It was in the New York Times. The New York Times is really good in really telling you what the fuck is going on geopolitically around the world. I highly suggest you people ignore the Post, ignore the Daily News, and pick up the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. Those two newspapers, which pay pretty much the same thing, tell you what the hell is really going on. Alright, so the article was basically about Russia making a statement that they will not renew the non-proliferation treaty that they have with the United States. Now, the non-proliferation treaty of nuclear weapons was basically a treaty signed between the United States, Russia mainly, and 4 other major superpowers at the time, in lieu of the end of World War II and the beginning of the Cold War, which is basically a massive arms buildup and race between the United States and Russia in preparation for a final world war, or World War III. This did not come to pass, and in and of itself, the United States and Russia during the Cold War fought proxy wars where they helped or sided or aided countries that represented their particular interest in the world, and they were in combat with other countries who did not particularly see eye to eye with the other countries, so on and so forth. So you had the United States helping some country guerrilla warfare, and then you had Russia lending money and aid to whatever. So during this time, during the Cold War, which was after World War II, the United States and Russia and certain countries said, we're going to come together, and we see the power of nuclear weapons, so we're going to sign agreements stating that, number one, there's 3 pillars. One, we're not going to proliferate nuclear weapons, meaning we're not going to make any more weapons. Number 2, we're going to disarm slowly. And number 3, we're going to go around the world to help other countries disarm. And 4, we're going to actually pursue peaceful uses for nuclear energy. We're not going to use it for weapons. So this particular treaty somewhat balanced the world. It sort of balanced the world and evenly distributed power, because basically what it did is it stopped the most powerful countries from gaining more power by creating more nuclear weapons, and then in and on itself it prevented other countries and held other countries accountable for actually creating more weapons and trying to use them against their enemies. That's one of the major issues that's happening now, in terms of Iran and Syria, because Iran in and of itself is talking about, trying to create nuclear weapons and them supposedly being very close. And then on top of that, you have, I think, North or South Korea, I forgot which one, are testing nuclear weapons as it is in preparation for, I guess, another military conflict with some country, maybe the other side, North fighting against South Korea and whatever. But the thing is, that treaty kept a lot of shit in check. You know what I mean? That treaty, which all parties agreed on, kept a lot of stuff in check and prevented other countries from going, you know what? There's only 6 to 7 countries that have nuclear weapons that can pretty much target all the other countries on the fucking planet. And because of those 6 to 7 countries, things were in balance. But once that treaty dissolves and Russia removes himself from the equation and the agreement dissolves, then you're gonna have a whole bunch of other countries racing against the clock to create nuclear weapons. And then it's like, wow, so if Iran gets nuclear weapons and all the other Middle Eastern countries get nuclear weapons, we're going to blow Israel up in some other country. Disclaimer, I do not agree with Israel in terms of the conflict between Israel and Palestine, in Israel and the Middle East, in Arab culture. I am more or less on the side of the Arab culture in the Middle East because of the fact that I know the history, I know what Israel has been doing, I've done my own studies, so on and so forth, just so you know my place, my stance in all this. So basically, yeah, once that treaty dissolves, Russia's going to start arming again. Iran is going to pretty much have weapons, and they're going to start, arming themselves as fast as possible. China is going to come into the mix because China, in and of itself, is a nuclear power. And I believe that somewhere along the line, because of this treaty dissolving, there's going to be a major conflict within the next 5-6 years between Russia, China, collectively on the same side, using Iran as a proxy, or Iran being the third party in a world war against the United States, backed by maybe the UK and maybe France. That's all I say. Maybe Germany on the side, if the cards are played right. But that's basically what's going on, and pretty much those are technically the major powers right now. The major powers in the world right now. So if any real war pops off, it's going to be against those 5 or 6 countries going ahead with each other. The next major issue, past the Obama thing, is the resignation of the head of the CIA, General Pretreus. The basic story: he was cheating on his wife. He was carrying on a relationship with his biographer who was writing his story, and what happened was a friend of his who he knew was a female was receiving a text by some person or woman or whatever, and she alerted the FBI and the CIA, and the FBI and CIA investigated, and they uncovered the emails and the texts between Pretreus and this woman, and they uncovered the affair. So they uncovered this entire shit, and they forced him to resign. The thing is that, coincidentally, this is all happening at the same time as the congressional hearing where they're investigating the Benghazi attack. So they're investigating the CIA in their involvement in either allowing for the Benghazi attack to happen or withholding information that would have prevented the Benghazi attack from happening. And the thing is, Pretreus was a key pivotal witness in this fucking case. So what happens is he steps down, right? He resigns from the head of the CIA. Mind you, his wife is like, yo, don't resign. Like, I hate your guts, but don't resign. That's good fucking money. But he resigns from the CIA, and on top of that, because of this, the fact that he broke his marriage vow is a pivotal reason why he would step down, because now he is not obligated by law to be part of the investigation or the congressional hearing investigating the CIA and their involvement of the Benghazi Benghazi case. So it was kind of convenient. Like, wow, you stepped down. What happened? Oh, because since I broke my oath under law to my wife, then anything I say is inadmissible in the court of law, basically. And I'm like, wow, really? So this magically all happened, um, like literally after the Obama administration, after Obama won the 2012 election, and when you are technically being called to, testify in court on what happened. Um, I honestly feel that his resignation as head of CIA for infidelity charges is directly linked to the the Benghazi case. Period. Like, hands down. Because this is another fucking shit. If you look at one of my other videos, you'll see that every time there's a scandal that pops off, there's always something else that's connected to it. Period. And that person is always connected to it, like directly, like, yo, blah blah blah. You lost your public office. Get the fuck out. Why did I lose my public office? Because you was snooping around or doing something stupid. This is just another example of it. So when you get the chance, look that up. I'm gonna do another video on something else. I don't know. Well, actually, I do know. Actually, I don't know. I do this by the fly. I basically pay attention to news, and I just regurgitate it in a simpler way, understanding way. All right, that's it. Deuces.